Friends, as doctors or optometrists, you may be often wondering which is the best enhanced monofocal IOL for your patients. And for those who are wondering what is an enhanced monofocal IOL, what we mean over here is that those IOLs that give an extended depth of focus. Monofocal IOLs we know that provides a depth of focus of around zero point 0.5 diopters to your patients, but enhanced monofocal IOLs may provide a higher amount of depth of focus for your patients, providing them some amount of intermediate vision. Now, this study is about, in the June JCRS published, a direct comparison between the Vivinex Impress, which is from the Hoya company, and the Tecnis Eyhance lens, which is from the Johnson & Johnson company. So a direct comparison between the two. They also chose a monofocal lens, which is the Vivinex lens, as a control group. Now, in terms of the optics over here, the Vivinex Impress in the central 2 millimeters, they have some design changes over here in the central 2 millimeters that provides the depth of focus. What kind of design changes they have that provides an enhanced depth of focus and higher depth of focus? That I have given in my blog quickguide.org under the optics section. You can always access this study, use the search button, and you can access the study over here. Now, in this explanation for the Vivinex Impress, I have given a diagram over here, which is an artist impression, but it shows you concavity up and a concavity down. So this part is the concavity up, this is the concavity down, and together you can call them as inflection points. So the place where it actually turns from a concavity up to a concavity down, these places are called the inflection points, and a series of inflection points actually helps create the depth of focus over here. For more understanding, you can refer to this article. Now, coming to the Tecnis Eyhance IOL here, the Tecnis Eyhance IOL actually has a continuous change in refractive curvature. The power profile decreases towards the periphery. The power profile decreases towards the periphery outside the central 1 millimeter diameter in a manner comparable to Tecnis one-piece IOL. So in the central 1 millimeter, you have a small continuous increase in lens power within the central 1 millimeter. And the references are also there in this article. Now, having understood this optics of these two lenses, what does this study talk about? As I have said earlier, this is a direct comparison, head-to-head comparison between the Tecnis Eyhance and the Vivinex Impress lens, and with the control group, which is the Vivinex in this case. Now, this is a retrospective analysis at 3 months post-operatively. What did they try to find out? They studied the corrected distance visual acuity at 5 meters, and they then measure the distance corrected intermediate visual acuity at 70 centimeters and at 50 centimeters. 70 centimeters is the intermediate zone. 50 centimeters is somewhat near, but not very near. Right? For typically reading, patients do keep the book around 38 to 40 centimeters, but 50 centimeters could be regarded as a writing distance from, not a reading distance. And all these tests were done under the photo peak condition. They also did a defocus curve from plus 2 to minus 3 diopters over here. So you can see from plus 2 to minus 3 diopters, they did a defocus curve, a head-to-head comparison between these two lenses, which is the Impress and the Tecnis Eyhance. And what we see over here, both the lenses perform quite similarly over here, but at the 65 centimeters here, which is when you dial a minus 1.5 diopters, that signifies 65 centimeters, because diopter is inversely proportional to focal length. So 1 diopter of power is 100 centimeters or 1 meter of focal length. So minus 1.5 diopter over here means around 66 to 65 centimeters of focal length, and that place probably the Vivinex Impress may have a better visual acuity for the patients. Otherwise, both these lenses perform quite similarly between the two. And now this is a study of 135 eyes of 75 patients. So 46 eyes implanted with the Vivinex Impress over here, and 47 eyes implanted with the Tecnis Eyhance, and 37 eyes were implanted with the XY1, which is the Vivinex monofocal lens here. Now, when they implanted these lenses and they sent a subjective questionnaire to the patients, how to understand how satisfied the patients were with their vision. Patients subjective satisfaction was analyzed in the bilateral cases. The XY1EM, which is the Vivinex Impress group, reported significantly higher ratings than the Tecnis Eyhance group for reading a newspaper item, and this is there in the table 3 over here. So these patients were asked about their reading a newspaper, recognizing faces, reading prices while shopping, so on and so forth. And what they found out that these were actually the scores of the patients based on their replies. So 3.79 versus 2.92 of the Tecnis Eyhance. So patients reading the newspaper probably were more comfortable reading the newspaper with the Vivinex Impress compared to the Tecnis Eyhance. A caveat over here is that they both are enhanced monofocal IOL, so they were not designed to typically give near vision to the patients. But there are additional factors that may help the patients to get a better near vision. One of that is pupil size, spherical aberration, and all those factors. So in this study, what they found out is that patients with the Vivinex Impress had a better reading a newspaper response, right? They were more comfortable in reading the newspaper. Apart from that, we know that these enhanced monofocal IOLs provide a one line better depth of focus of one line than the conventional IOLs, right? And several studies have actually showed that. So as per this study also, both the Eyhance and the XY1EM had a one line better depth of focus on the Snell's chart compared to the conventional monofocal IOL, which was the Vivinex lens. But what they found is that very interesting, at 70 centimeters and at 50 centimeters, the patient's distance corrected intermediate visual acuity. So the patient's distance corrected intermediate visual acuity tend to be better with the Vivinex Impress compared to the Tecnis Eyhance lens. So actually what you can see is that the 70 the Vivinex Impress probably performed better over here. And as I described before, that at minus 1.5 diopters of deep focus, that is at 66 centimeters, the patients with the Vivinex Impress group also had a better visual acuity. Now, at 50 centimeters, which is neither near nor very intermediate, distance corrected intermediate visual acuity, that is, the patients were corrected for the distance and then measured for the intermediate. At 50 centimeters, the patient's vision with the Vivinex Impress was 0.16 logmar, which is around 6 by 7.5, versus 0.21 logmer with the Tecnis Eyhance, which is around 20 by 32, which is around 6 by 9.5 kind of thing. So at 50 centimeters, the Vivinex Impress also proved to be better than the Tecnis Eyhance. Not a huge difference, but a statistically significant difference was there. There was a few shortcomings or limitations of this paper. Is that one is that they measured only the patient's vision. The defocus curve were attained at 5 meters, 70 centimeters, and 50 centimeters, but they didn't go down to 40 centimeters, which is actually the real measure of the patient's near vision. But that being said, remember that this enhanced monofocal IOL, as I have said earlier, they were not designed to be to provide the near vision to the patient. They were designed to provide some amount of depth of focus in terms of intermediate vision to the patients, right? And the other important limitation of this study is that they only generated the defocus curve with the Vivinex Impress and the Tecnis Eyhance. They only generated with these two lenses. They did not actually generate the defocus curve with the monofocal control group, which in this case is the Vivinex monofocal group. That would have given a more direct comparison between the three lenses, right? And I hope you got some insights into the performance between the Tecnis Eyhance and the Vivinex Impress. This is one study. In future, I hope that there will be more such studies. Over here is that the fact that the Impress may have worked better in this study doesn't mean that the Impress will work better in your patients also, because the patient's demographic profile are different. This study is done on mainly Japanese eyes. The results may be entirely different if you are doing it in Caucasian eyes or Indian eyes or other eyes, right? So you cannot take this as a Bible, but this studies actually kind of gives you a strong indication. Thank you very much. Keep following my website quickguide.org and my channel in the YouTube. Keep subscribing to my channel, and see you in the next video.